Geographers, how we doing? Woo! Oh man, it's AP season. We're almost there. We are going to be reviewing Unit 1 of AP Human Geography. So if you're ready to review, I'm ready to review. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a good night. We got a ton of people in the chat right now. This is phenomenal. You guys are all awesome. So real quick, we're going to get started in just a second. I want to know where people are from. But if you want, I do have guided notes and stuff. So feel free to get those out. They're in the Ultimate Review packet. Tonight, what we're going to be doing, we'll quick put it on the screen so you can see. Maybe that'll be easier. We are going through Unit 1. Here's the CED. Now, this document, if you haven't seen it before, no big deal. But this is the course exam description. This is created by College Board, and this is what they're going to test you on. So when I was going through, making notes, doing stuff with the Kahoot, everything connects back to this document. If it's in this document, the College Board can test you on it. So you can see the learning objective, essential knowledge. It's a massive document. You can find it. There's a link in the description. You can find it online. It's free. If you want to, I went through, and it's right here too. I copied it all over if you want. So if you want a spot to take notes, you can take notes right here. So it's in the Ultimate Review bag. It's online, but this is what we're going to be focusing on today. Anything that's in here could be on that AP test. Again, too, if you want, you can also go and get the guided notes for this if you would like. It's up to you. But that is in the Ultimate Review packet. So cool. I got that out of the way. I'll let some people get their stuff. Let me know where you're from. I'll post some of them on the screen. It's always cool to say hi to everyone and see where everyone's from. So let's see. We got Mr. Johnson's 8th period class. Hello, hello. We got Florida. Yes. Texas, Illinois, Texas, whoops. Oh, shoot. It's going so fast now that I'm like, it's crazy how many people are here. Mars, wow. Ronald Reagan. I was meant to click the Mars one. Georgia, Miss Baker, Mr. Johnson, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Miss Nelson, woo, 3rd period class, Mr. Donald, Miss Kremer. I know I mispronounced that one. I apologize that. Texas, North Carolina, St. Cloud. Hey, Minnesota represent. That banner is huge. I feel like they changed the size of that. Oh, well, that's fine. Cool. So we got the shout outs and everything there. I'm going to scoot up a little bit so I'm out there. We are going to get started. We are reviewing, again, Unit 1. So I don't want to waste any time. I want to make sure we're respectful. How this is going to work, we are going to go through kind of the notes of Unit 1. And then what we're going to do is connect back and do some Kahoot. So I'm going to kind of do an overview. I'm going to try to engage with the chat throughout. We'll have some opportunities where you can kind of talk and engage there. See if I can make this a little bit smaller. And if not, there, that's a lot better. We're going to go with that. So I'll try to engage with the chat as much as I can, but the notes, I want to make sure we're pretty aware of that. Then we'll do the Kahoot and I'll engage a lot more with the chat. And then for those wondering, if you got to leave, if you got to go do something, no worries. I will repost this. I'll probably split it. So that way we have the note section that'll get posted without the Kahoot. Then you'll have the Kahoot section at the end. So cool. All righty. I'm already super far behind. Love for Virginia. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to get started now. Let's get it going. Unit 1. Here we go. So right off the bat, one of the big things with Unit 1 that you want to make sure that you are paying attention to is maps. And maps are going to come up throughout this whole course. You got to be able to read them. And that is the focus here. We have reference maps and we have thematic maps. So make sure you know the difference between them. Remember, reference maps are more just informational. They'll show us boundaries, the toponym, geographic features of an area. They could be used for directions. But thematic maps, on the other hand, that's where we're starting to see now these themes, these patterns, and we're looking at spatial patterns of places. And a lot of times they're displaying quantitative data. Real quick, anyone know what a toponym is? So what do we see? I'll try to pin it on the screen. So I mentioned that reference maps can show it. That is a vocab word you'll want to be familiar with for the AP test. People saying they're cooked. You're not cooked. I got place's name. Yeah, place's name, the name of a place on Earth. Place's name of a place. Yes. Awesome. Rawr. Awesome. Good. We're getting it. So with maps, then we're going to there we go. With maps, we're going to break down some of the different types of thematic maps. Now, the big thing with the different types of thematic maps, and actually it'll be easier, we'll split it like that so you can kind of see. Each of these types of thematic maps, you don't have to worry too much about memorizing all these components of them. The bigger thing is that you can read them, and you maybe understand also some limitations. We have seen in the past questions that'll ask like, what is a limitation of this map at a particular scale, or trying to understand it for a particular topic. Remember, when we're looking at like broad themes of this course, and this will come up throughout the whole test for all the different units, but we always have like the political, the economic, the social, the cultural. We're looking at these larger themes that can connect into questions. And a lot of times thematic maps can actually show these. So for here, our first one's chloropleth maps. Remember here, we're looking at these kind of ranges. So here we have two different types of maps that were both examples. We're having different shading here. And it's a great way to display data. And there's a high likelihood that you're going to see one of these types of maps on your AP test. So make sure that you do spend time when you're studying, not just remembering, okay, this is what a chloropleth map is, this is what it looks like, but actually, how do you interpret that? If I was to ask you a question, for example, like which part of the United States, like which region, if we're looking at it, has the highest literacy rates or the lowest literacy rates, you'd want to make sure that you could read and interpret that data. Another thing too, whenever we're looking at these maps, again, you got to make sure you always are looking at the title, look at the legend, what's the source. A lot of times that information can actually help you get some pretty easy points, especially if there's any prompts or things that go with it. So always spend time. My students all the time it's not their fault, but you get stressed when you're taking a test. And so you go fast and you skim and you make really easy mistakes. And a lot of times, actually, when we go back and look at our past tests, maybe this has happened to you. You look at your test, you're like, what the heck was I thinking? Like, this is clearly wrong. And that's because when you're looking at it, you're no longer stressed and you're looking at it more objectively. So take your time when it comes to maps. So that way you can make sure you don't make some mistakes. Another one you want to be familiar with is dot density. So dot density maps are, again, a common one that we have seen on the AP test before. So we have a thematic map. It's showing that precise location. Now, depending on the scale of the map, it can be harder to read these. For example, here we can see, I really can't see the exact dot. I mean, each dot it's saying is a person, but they're blending in together because of my scale here. So remember, we have small scale and large scale maps. We'll talk about those a little bit more later on. And actually, real quick, anyone remember the difference? What would be an example of a small scale map or large scale? What's the difference between those? Again, some vocab that comes up when we're looking at maps here. So we have small scale, large scale. I'll try to pin a comment there. Some people saying global, small scale, small detail. Yep. When you're thinking small scale, think of like the Earth. So for example, we can look at a lot, but we're not getting a lot of that detail there. Large scale, on the other hand, I think it's, large scale, lots of detail. Yep. Nice. Global would be a small scale. That is correct. Correct. Nice. Got a lot there. And if you're messing it up, not a big deal. That's why we're reviewing. So some people flipped them in the comments there. Not a big deal. That's why we're reviewing. But again, depending on the scale with dot density, it's easier sometimes to read it and sometimes not. Gradual symbol isn't as common, I would say, as the other two, but you definitely want to be familiar with it. One thing that is kind of a limitation here. So we can see we have this one's 2016 presidential election. And then over here, we have North American ski resort for snowfall. And we can see there's a lot of overlap, and that can make it difficult to read. So it's the limitations of these, but generally these maps get used because they're pretty visual and interesting for people to look at. Ice-line maps are another one that could come up on the AP test. Again, it's not maybe as common, but it definitely has before. One thing to remember with ice lines is we have these contour lines. So these lines right here, and that's what's being used to kind of group the different characteristics together that it is displaying. So spend a little time making sure you remember about the contour lines. Again, all of these are thematic maps. So remember that they're all displaying data. They're all displaying some information. It's not just showing the Earth's surface, which would be more of a reference map. The next one is cartogram, and this one, make sure you spend some time with. A lot of students get tripped up on these because of the distortion. So the distortion can make it a little harder to read. And remember, generally when we're looking at these, the larger the area is, the more whatever that topic the map is on, it is prevalent. So it's more showing there. So for example, here we have population. So the larger areas here have a higher population. So the smaller the area, then the smaller the population, at least for this particular map. Now, it could be other things. There's some that are like on farming. There's some that are on boats. There's a ton of different cartogram maps besides just population. But definitely make sure that you spend some time being able to read and interpret them. I know for my students, a lot of times, especially earlier in the school year, they get messed up on it, especially when we're looking at a global map, because countries would all of a sudden like kind of disappear, or regions would, because they'd have so many few variable, whatever we were talking about, present. And so there wouldn't really be represented on the map. So it can be kind of hard to sometimes remember where everything is. So definitely take some time if you get a cartogram map to break it down. All right, we're almost done with our maps here. The next one is a flow line map. By the way, if you're following along in the notes, if I'm going too fast, let me know. You can always pause it or rewind or any of that stuff. But we have a flow line map. And here's an example on the screen right now. Right here, we're looking at exports and imports. So let me know in the chat. You'll want to definitely know what exports and imports are. What is the difference between exports and imports? So in the chat, I'll try to pin a couple difference between exports and imports. So flow line maps, though, are great at showing movement. And that could be people, like I have on the screen, goods, it could be ideas, and we're talking about different areas. And that's the cool thing, like with globalization, with this new connected world that we live in, I mean, we interact all the time now. So for example, the camera that I'm using right now, I actually had an overheating problem yesterday. And so I had to quick get a new fan to install it on the back of it to keep it cooler during the live stream so it wouldn't shut off. Hopefully it doesn't shut off. But I ordered that on Amazon. That came actually from Florida, but it was also produced in China. The world today is connected and things are moving all over the place. And flow lines are a great way to show that. So let's see, exports, imports. Oh, I'm really far behind. Going back. Exports out, imports in. Yeah. So you can see E for exit, I for in. Exports send out. That is correct. Can we go over these? Yes. We're going to go over all the stuff for unit 1. So we will get there. Yep. Perfect. A lot of people are seeing it. A couple of people had them flipped. Again, if you had them flipped, no worries. Not a big deal. Just remember exports, E for exit, I for in. Cool. All right, that was a really quick overview of the different types of maps. If you're struggling and you want, by all means, I have more stuff in the Ultimate Review packet. I have a whole quiz that's just literally maps, and it's you reading it and trying to figure out what statements or scenarios work the best. So if you want to check it out, you can. I also filmed me taking the quiz and like just going through point by point of how you could interpret stuff. So there's like a 52-minute video in there. So if you want, by all means, check it out. It's in the Ultimate Review packet. But if you don't, no worries. That's if you needed some more help. All right, next thing is map projections. And the big thing with map projections is don't get too bogged down in your studies about trying to memorize and learn every single map projection. You don't need to. There is tons of map projections. The big thing, though, is to understand that every map has a fundamental problem. Anyone remember what the fundamental problem is? Fundamental problem. What do we got? Fundamental problem of all maps. I should have clarified that a little bit more. So every single map has this, and it is distortion. Distortion. Yes. Size and distance can be distorted. Distortion. All maps are distorted. They're all distorted. They're all incorrect, which is weird to think about. But yeah, it can be the shape. It can be the area. It can be the distance, the direction. All of those can actually be distorted. So that's something to look at. When you're looking at map projections, these are some of the main ones that you might want to kind of pay attention to, especially the Mercator. That's come up before. We can see a lot of distortion there. For example, Africa is way smaller on this map. Greenland's way larger. This actually should be flipped. So there's a lot of distortion that occurs there. Robinson, the good Hubble scene, the Fuller projection. These are some you might have went over in class. And there's also like the Winkle triple and other ones as well. For studies, again, I wouldn't focus too much on memorizing all of the different Mercator or all the different projections. I would focus more on just being able to read maps. You have a lot of things to study right now. And so you want to kind of pick and choose on what's going to make the biggest impact for your scores. So moving into the next part, which kind of deals with maps as well, we have some vocab. And again, I saw some people asking like, what's all this stuff based off of? Just a reminder, everything I'm saying right now, I'm just focusing on the stuff in the CED. So that's the stuff that College Board has said, hey, these things could be on that AP test. So I'm not going with a particular textbook. I'm just going from that course exam description. So With our maps, whenever we're looking at them and whenever we're talking about different places, you want to be familiar with things like absolute distance. And remember, absolute distance, we're looking at the exact distance between two places. And you don't want to mix that up with absolute direction. Absolute direction is the exact direction you're heading. There's also relative distance. And relative distance, remember, is this approximate measurement. And it's between two places again. Oftentimes, for example, we can say time. So for example, like, oh, I'm like 15 minutes away. I'm coming there. I'm just it's relative based on my location and where I'm going to. It's not precise. And same thing with relative direction would be the other one you want to be familiar with. And that's where the direction actually depends on your surrounding area. So those you want to be familiar with, you might see them come up. I'm not going to say you're going to get a question that's like, what's the definition for absolute distance? You're probably not going to get that, but you might see these terms used in an answer or in a question. And that's why vocab in this class is so important. It's not that you're getting a bunch of questions that are just saying, define this term. It's that you're getting questions that are going to use the vocab because the College Board expects you to have an understanding of it. And sometimes they might even pair certain terms together. For example, like absolute distance and direction, or relative distance and relative direction. They want to see, do you really know what that term is, or are you going to make a mistake and flip it for a different term? Cool. So let's get a little bit more interactive here. Let's look at some settlement stuff. What do we got here? Is this an example of clustered, dispersed, or linear? So take a second, type it in the chat. I'm going to try to get caught up. Get a little bit more interaction instead of me just talking. I got dispersed. Yes, yes. Awesome. All right, next one. What do we got? Got a little water there. Linear. Correct. Linear. Yes, yes. Awesome. Linear. Yes. So we can see that line kind of going all the way down. All right. What about this one? We have a couple more. Here we go. I think I fell behind on a couple super chats, as people are saying. Shout out to Mr. Abrams first period. Shout out to you. Another shout out to Miss Abrams, or Mr. Abrams first period. So shout out to first period. All right, and it is another linear one. So yes, it is linear. All right. Some people saying long lots. Could have some long lots there too that could connect as well. Long lots are linear. We'll talk more about long lots, meets and bounds, township and range, all of that in Unit 5. So that'll be more Unit 5. And I'm already seeing a bunch of people saying it is clustered. Yes, clustered. Cool. We got a lot there. Everyone's doing pretty good. All right, we're going to talk about data in just a second, but I want to point out one thing to note when we're looking at like linear, clustered, dispersed. Those pictures, it looks like for most of you, are pretty easy. The thing you want to focus on when you're studying, though, is understand, like if I live in a clustered settlement, if I live in a linear or dispersed, how does that impact me? How is that going to impact the amount of services that I have or the opportunities? What's life going to be like? How could that impact, again, if we go back to these themes, the social life, economic opportunities, political, environmental, how are these things impacted by how our societies are laid out? So that would be something I would spend a little time with, because you might see some questions that are going a little bit more deeper than just, can you identify? They might be trying to see like, well, what would one have more traffic, or which one's going to maybe have higher taxes, different things, that component. And also be able to connect them, like some of you already did, to the other units. Like someone already brought up, I would pin it again and it's already gone, but long lots. So like linear and long lots, we can see a lot of overlap between units, and College Board is going to often do that on test questions. So for our next part of Unit 1, we are looking at data, and we have qualitative and quantitative, two terms you really want to make sure you're familiar with, because they are going to come up throughout all of the different units in this class. And it's something that will definitely help you answer a variety of different questions and deal with different stimulus components. So make sure that you have an idea there of the difference here. Remember, qualitative, we're looking more at information that is kind of up for debate. It's up for interpretation. I could do a survey, and every time I survey people, they'll probably give me different answers. But it could be great to do. For example, like governments will use qualitative data to see like, okay, what do people think about a particular candidate or a particular policy or law? And then they might adjust their laws or their candidates based on what the people are saying. That would be more qualitative. On the other hand, we also have quantitative. So remember, quantitative is objective. It's not up for debate. I mean, the crime rate of a city, that is just a fact. Now, we could debate what caused that, or we could debate other aspects of it, but the number itself is what is that quantitative data. So that would be something there that is quantitative. Real quick, let's see, what is this an example of? So I got over here this GDP per capita of 2020. We're looking here at a map. What do we got? Is it qualitative or quantitative? Let's see, quick go. And I'm seeing quantitative based on the numbers. Yeah, so quantitative GDP per capita would be quantitative. What about a population pyramid? We'll talk more about these in Unit 2, which will be tomorrow. What do we got, qualitative or quantitative? Who else is getting? You're not getting the 2. You've got this. You got to have confidence. You can do this, geographer. Come on, you're not getting a 2. You guys are going to do great. All right, what do we got? What do we got? Here we go. Go back. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have left. I'm just starting to see. I should have left those definitions up. I apologize. I'll try to do that more. I'll leave those up more so that way you can see it. Quantitative. Yeah, quantitative. This would be quantitative. Someone also said a chloropleth map, which this would be. So that is correct on that as well. All right, what do we got here? One more. Here we have qualitative or quantitative, a survey on how students feel about the quality of their school lunch. What do we got? Everybody loves school lunch. Yeah, everybody loves it. And I'm seeing quantitative, both. It would be qualitative. So qualitative, I would say it's qualitative here. Again, we're surveying people. We're getting their opinion, their perspective. Technically, will we have like a number at the end? Yes, but this is not necessarily, if we go back, it's going to be up for kind of debate interpretation. So data for quantitative is just a factual thing. It's objective. Where qualitative is more subjective. So these are things that are being described. For example, how you feel about your school lunch is an opinion. Each person will have a different way on it. Again, if you're struggling with any of these, I do have a quiz in there. It's just 25 questions. All the questions are is different like statements or situations. And then you're identifying, is it qualitative or quantitative? And then there's a 26-minute video of me explaining it. So if you're interested, if you need more help, if you're like, I'm a little fuzzy here, you can check out the ultimate review packet. I got a quiz in there, just breaking it down. And all it does is focus on those terms. Cool. We're going to move on to the next thing. I'm going to try, where are we at right now? 23 minutes? Okay. All right. We're doing good. We're doing good on time. The next part is geospatial technologies. And some people are already asking for it. I'll put it on the screen. There's a couple different things here that connect. So all of these are examples of geospatial technologies. So remote sensing, remember, we're looking at the Earth, sometimes from satellites, but we're collecting information without presently being there. A GPS, oftentimes we use for directions, but we're also starting to see GPS be used in a lot of other ways as well. For example, farms can use GPS now with tractors to better use the tractors for plowing the fields to make sure they're very precise in their lines. And then a GIS, we kind of have the example here. It's layering these data. So we have a software here that's actually storing, capturing, and manages and displays it. So a lot of times our thematic maps will use GIS to be able to kind of create some visual things. And it makes it easier for us to be able to actually read and interpret stuff. So geospatial technologies are important. You will see these terms come up on the test. Again, I'm not saying that you're going to have a question that's saying define remote sensing, but you might have one that uses remote sensing in the question or an answer that uses it in there. So you want to make sure you have an idea on these concepts here. I'm going to go to the next one. I know some people are asking to pause. The hard thing with doing the live streams with so many people is everyone goes at different paces. But the nice thing is you can always pause the video and you'll be able to catch up, or you can also rewatch it later on. Cool. Let's go on to our next part. And it is gathering information. So there's a bunch of ways in which we collect information. I'm not going to go into in-depth in all these. These are the 7 that are listed in the course exam description. The nice thing with these, like field observations, you can kind of put it together. Like, okay, if I'm there, I'm observing it. I have to be actually in the field. The media reports, I'm going to look at things that the news is saying, or travel narratives. I'm talking to different individuals who are maybe there and what they thought about it. Policy documents would be looking at legislative things, looking at laws that are enacted in an area. Interviews, you're talking to people. The 2 that I would spend the most time with practicing out of these 7, if you're going to actually focus on them, is landscape analysis and photographic interpretation. And that's because on the test, there's a high chance you're going to have to do this. So I would spend a little time making sure that you have practiced that skill. You want to make sure that you are able to look at a picture, and it could be from an area you've never seen before, but be able to observe it. What type of buildings are there? What type of clothes are people wearing? Is there more modern culture, pop culture? Is it folk culture? So connecting to unit 3 there. Is there certain types of land use patterns that we can see, or agriculture? Maybe it's more rural community, or is it an urban area? So you want to be able to observe and kind of pick up on different things just from looking at a photo there. And that's going to be important because that way you can connect into some of our core skills. And we have seen plenty of questions in the past that'll show you a landscape or show you some photo, and you have to connect it into like different religions, the cultural landscape. You have to look at the different possible cultural traits that are prevalent in that photo. So definitely spend some time on those. The other ones aren't too bad. So if I'm focusing on anything right now with you guys, I'd be these two in particular. All right, going on. Next thing we have is census and satellite imagery. This uses remote sensing. We're not going to have the audio here, but it's kind of a cool time lapse. There's a bunch of them online if you're interested here. You can just see over the time how land use has changed. So we can see deforestation here, which connects also into unit 5. So consequences of agricultural techniques and practices. So I thought that was kind of a cool video. There's longer ones on there, but the census, satellite images, these things collect data. So the census, remember, that is going to be an example of quantitative data. And the census comes up a lot in this course, and we use a lot of data from it. It's a very important thing that happens every 10 years. We collect all this information on different people across the country. And it gives us not only an accurate count for how many people live, but we also start to see different characteristics from median household income to race to gender, all these things that then we can use to inform policy decisions and just have good conversations. So that would be an example of quantitative data there. All right, going on to our next thing. I want to show a couple different scales. So we have to understand how to use things on different levels or different scales. So one way in which we can use data here is personal. So for example, here we have Redfin. Let's say you want to buy a house. All this data is being collected and displayed. We have some thematic maps here. This one I'm looking at crime rate. So I, as an individual, I might look to see, okay, where is it located next to like the highways or interstate? Do I want it to be in a particular school district? I could do an overlay for schools. I could also look at crime rates. I could use it as in general when I'm looking at data, even just for like, what's the weather? Today for Minnesota, I didn't know if we were actually going to be able to do the live stream. I actually have a pre-recorded live stream all queued up, and I had a different intro and an outro because Minnesota, where I'm lived, we were in like a severe weather. Why am I blanking now? I've been just talking straight for on. Anyways, it was a severe storm. We were supposed to have tornadoes and a lot of hail and a high chance of losing power. So I had like a whole backup plan. But I was using then those maps where we're looking at ice line maps to try and track that to see, okay, are we going to be good? Are we not? Do we need to go into the basement if we're going to have a tornado? So personal, we can see a lot of application there. We also can use all of our spatial data here for business. So here we're looking at average income by country. Real quick, anyone know what the scale of this map is and the scale of analysis? The scale of analysis. So let's see what we got here. It's in Wisconsin now. I hope you stay safe. If the storm, I know the storm's been moving quick. They're moving about, I think the news was saying 50 to 60 miles an hour. So it was pretty windy. So stay safe if you're in Wisconsin. We have a global scale and a national scale of analysis. Yes, global scale, global, national, all those work. Again, remember, a couple people mixed them up. Remember, when we're talking about global scale, we're looking at the entire globe here. We can see all of the different countries, but the scale of analysis is how data is organized. And we'll spend more time later on. So here we can see the data is organized by the country. That's why it would be a national scale. But for businesses, a business might want to say, hey, I want to open a new business somewhere. I need to make sure that my customers are where I'm going to open my business. And each business knows different amounts of data that they need for like how much people make, who's their customer. Like for example, Ferrari, the average income needs to be a lot higher than, let's say, a Honda. Not to rip Honda, there's nothing wrong there. But the Honda Civic is a little bit of a cheaper car than a Ferrari. So their average customer base is a little bit different. So they would look at different maps to be able to see, okay, where would I locate? Now, the one issue here, and some of you have already kind of pointed it out, an issue is we're looking at a small scale map here. And because it's a small scale, I don't have a lot of detail. So that's great. I could be like, all right, I want to locate in the United States or Canada or Australia, but I don't know where. So we could change the scale of the map. So now we could look at a regional scale here where we're starting to see the median household income by state. So we can see each state now is different. And notice as we start to change our scale, as we go from more of a small scale to a large scale, we start to get more insight. Right here, we have a lot of generalizability. It's very general. It's all been applied. Now we're starting to get more specifics in our data. And if we continue this trend even further, we could look even by counties. So now we could go for a local scale. And I could see exactly like which counties in the United States are the most wealthy with the higher medium household income. And that could then help me determine as a business where exactly I want to locate a store, or maybe where I want to locate production or a factory. So again, just realize on the test, do you have to memorize this example that I have here? No. But you do want to make sure that you have an understanding of how scale, and as we change scale, impacts data and how it can be used from a personal to a business or even to a government. So for example, here we have a bunch of population pyramids from Utah. I can see 2000, 2010, all the way to 2020. And we can see what's happening as our population shifts and changes. So realize that every different organization uses data and the scale of it matters. So we're going to go on to the next thing. I just really wanted to highlight that. The hard thing here, it's not something that you can necessarily just like memorize. I mean, you can memorize like, okay, as we zoom in more, we get more details, but you have to practice reading data and also make sure you have some idea on how different organizations could use it. And that could be helpful, even going into the FRQ, to be able to say, hey, off the top of my head, I know 3 ways government can use it. I know 3 personal, I know 3 business. Just in case you get an FRQ on it, you'll be able to kind of have one in your back pocket that you could quick pull up. All right, couple more vocab. We're going to speed up a little bit here. I want to make sure I'm respectful of all of your guys' time. These are some terms, though, I'd make sure you have an idea of. Some of them are kind of self-explanatory. They come up throughout the whole course. Place will definitely come up in Unit 3. But remember, when you're thinking of like these concepts, the focus here is just making sure you understand what they mean. Don't worry about perfectly memorizing a definition. If you have an FRQ that's a define and it asks you to define place or a sense of place, you can word it in a variety of ways. The readers are going to be looking for, do you understand the main point? Do you understand that concept? So don't focus just on memorizing an exact definition there. Focus on the larger thing there. All right, since these are just vocab, I'm going to go to the next one just for time's sake here, where we get to distance decay. So distance decay is a concept that comes up throughout this course. Remember, it's this effect that distance has on our interactions. And what distance decay would say is farther away you are from a place, less likely you are to interact with it. Or the farther away you are from someone, less likely. If we connect back Tobler's law of geography, which you don't have to know about Tobler, but that's where distance decay and this stuff kind of comes from. So we're looking at this impact. And distance decay has decreased. And that's something to remember. And that is because of time-space compression. Time-space compression, the world feels smaller. So we can see this kind of graphic here. And over time, the world seems like it's shrinking. And that's because we can now connect so much easier around the world. I mean, I gave the example of getting the fan earlier for my camera, so it wouldn't overheat. And that came from China, which then was shipped across the world and went to Florida. Then it went on a truck and it was all the way up to Minnesota. That's time-space compression. We're able now to connect to more places quicker than ever before. And a big part of that is due to technological advancements. So make sure you have an understanding of these two concepts. You'll see them come up throughout different questions. So they're important to kind of remember there. Cool. We're on to the perspectives. How we got here. I just quick looked at the chat. There's a ton of stuff going on. It's just like flying. Cars, phones, but planes and boats. Yes, all the modes of transportation. All right, for the perspectives, environmental determinism and possibilism. Don't mix these two up. Remember, environmental determinism, the physical environment is actually what dictates possibilities. It's essentially saying like, hey, the people that live there, your outcome, your possibilities are determined. Just remember that determined, it's set. Possibilism, think of like anything's possible. This is factoring in human agency. Agency is your ability to take control over your own life. So possibilism is a lot more accepted today. especially as technological advancements continue to happen. We are no longer limited as much by our environment. I mean, I gave the fact, like I live in Minnesota, we're able to withstand pretty cold temperatures up here without really any issue. Same thing with all the snow. We can handle quite a bit of snow without getting school canceled. I always laugh when I talk to other students or teachers around the country. They'll be like, "Oh, we got like an inch of snow and school got canceled." And we would need to get like a couple feet at least to be able to get canceled up here. But we've adapted more, and we also have more technology. We have more snow plows. We have different methods of taking care of the roads. And so we're able to do that. And that would be kind of like possible. We're adapting to our environment. So make sure you don't mix these two up. These all deal with human environment interaction, which, remember, that's part of the 5 themes of geography. Human environment interaction is any time that we are interacting with the environment, there's always an interaction that occurs back. So if we manipulate the environment, generally there's going to be another like kind of this cause and effect that can go through there. Cool. We are getting there. A couple more concepts. We're getting down towards the end of Unit 1. One quick thing when human environment interactions, there's renewable and non-renewable resources. Most people understand these, but that could come up. Also, it might come up again with Unit 7. I was blanking for a second there. It'll come up there as well. So just have an idea of these two concepts. Also, too, land use patterns. You want to make sure that you have a good understanding of land use patterns, particularly when you're looking at an image. If we connect back to ways we collect data, remember when I was saying that, like, hey, you want to make sure photographic interpretation and landscape analysis, this skill connects into land use patterns. Understanding when you're looking somewhere, what are their priorities? If I have a lot of agricultural land, that's showing maybe inferences that we could make about the population density, which would connect into Unit 2. It's going to show us stuff with Unit 5. It could show us the economic development. We could connect it into even the demographic transition model. So same thing too with residential, transportation, industrial. These things reveal a lot about what society is prioritizing. What's their economic development? What might be government policies? Or what's the culture? So again, there's not stuff that you can necessarily memorize, but I'm just kind of reminding you to always be aware of this. Whenever we're looking at different images or we're looking at different scenarios, to have that in the back of your mind, because oftentimes that can help you actually come to a quality answer. For example, if we look at this photo here, take a second, let me know, what does this picture tell us? So I can see we have Japan here, but what, like, just from looking at it, we could kind of notice we have a lot of like hotels. We're clearly by some mountains, so we have like the ski resort. We also, though, we don't have a lot of residential areas. It looks like most of it is kind of very compacted together. I can see maybe like a ski lodge kind of right up here. Maybe there's a track going up, but this would kind of reference us. This is a higher economic development area. This would kind of show us that there's a lot of tourism. So we can kind of gain insight from just looking at how land is being used. Even if you didn't have this, if it didn't tell you what the land use actually was, you'd be able to kind of get that from there. So yeah, a lot of commercial land, tourism, rich, so higher economic development, that could be something there. A lot of people are saying ecotourism. This one, I don't know about ecotourism. Great connection into Unit 7. So awesome connection to Unit 7. We need a little bit more information on that. Ecotourism, remember, is also trying to promote sustainability, protecting that local culture as well. Where this, in this image, when I'm looking at the land use pattern, it looks a lot more kind of globalized. I can see a lot more homogenous architectural styles there. So probably not ecotourism, but great connection to Unit 7. All right, we're going on to scale and scale of analysis. Scale and scale of analysis, super important. Very easy to mix it up. A lot of people mix these things up here. Scale, remember, we're just talking about the Earth's surface. So like the distance on the map to the corresponding distance. Scale of analysis is all about how data is collected, organized, and presented. So always remember, scale of analysis is that data there. How it's organized, how it's presented. Homogeneous would mean like everything's the same. So if something's homogeneous, it's all kind of standardized the same. Like a lot of neighborhoods in the United States, they kind of like cookie cutter houses now. They're all built the exact same. So they have like one kind of style and they just build a bunch of them. So the neighborhoods are homogeneous compared to before. If we looked back, each house would be unique. And so there'd be a lot of there'd be more diversity in the types of buildings. So homogeneous, everything is the same. Cool. So these are our different scales and scale of analysis that are the most common. We got local, regional, national, and global. You might see subnational. Subnational would just be anything below the national. So sub meaning below, national, it's below the national there. All right, so here would be an example of a local scale of analysis. Again, this would also be a large scale. We can get lots of data. We can see a lot what's going on. As we move out, we could get a regional scale. Now, regional can look at a variety of different ways. This is just one example. We're looking at regions of California, which California itself is a region state of the United States. We can look at national, which I really should just cut out the US here. So we should just focus on Canada. That's kind of the focus I try to make. But a national scale where we're looking at a whole country, a global scale where we're looking at the entire world. All of these would be different examples. We also can see different scale and scale of analysis. So real quick, let's practice. What's the scale and what's the scale of analysis here? So what do we got here? Scale and scale of analysis. Scale and scale of analysis. Yes. Oh, shoot. I wanted to pin that comment. That was a good comment. I apologize. I wanted to give you credit. It's already gone. One person said, if we're looking at global, could we still have regions on the global scale? Absolutely. That's why regions is kind of a weird one. We can have a variety of different things. So always pay attention to how the data is being presented to you. For example, like North America, we're looking at a region, a global region there. But we can zoom in too, and eventually you're getting into like regions of the 50 states or regions within a state if we're looking at directions and stuff being used. So regions can be used in a variety of different ways. Here we go. Global would be the scale. So that would be the global. And national would be the scale of analysis. So global would be the scale, national would be the scale of analysis. Remember, so scale is looking at how much of the Earth's surface we are looking at, and scale of analysis is how data is organized. So how is data being organized and presented? So that's the difference between the two. They use still global, national, regional, local, but scale is looking at how much of the Earth's surface we're talking about. Scale of analysis is the data. All right, once again, what do we got here? Let's see. We got a national scale and regional. So yes, national scale, regional analysis. Correct. Trying to get as many people as I can. Chat goes so fast there. Yes. Awesome. All right, let's do another one. So scale and scale of analysis. What do we got here? Notice here too, this can be confusing, this map that we're actually looking at. So as people are typing stuff out, it's a little confusing, just all the colors. We have a lot of different ranges here. So this would be our legend. You want to always pay attention to it. And we got a national and local. Yeah, so these are counties. It's hard to kind of see, but right here, it does say life expectancy by county. So the data is organized on a local level. But we're still looking at the entire country. We're looking at the national there. So national scale. This could also, people are saying it's a larger scale map. That would be true. It's always a comparison there. So like if we're comparing to like a global scale, definitely this would be a more larger scale map. Chloropleth, that is also correct. Nice. Good connections. Got connections to a bunch of different stuff. National and local. Correct. Awesome. Okay, let's go on. We're almost done with scale and scale of analysis. We have a couple more just to practice. What do we got here? So here we're looking at a different type of map. Again, we're looking at some bird routes, it looks like. The test last year was grueling. Global, regional, global, national. Okay, so we got a lot of different global and flow line. Flow map. We do have some flow. Yes, it's showing movement. Here we're looking at the movement of birds. So that would be correct there. For this would be global scale and global scale of analysis. The reason why it's a global scale of analysis, the data or information we're presenting here, it's not connected to any particular state or like any particular country. Remember, state and country are the same thing, but they're not confined to certain boundaries. We're looking at the global migration patterns here. So data, it's all global. So that would be the correct one. It would be a global scale and global scale of analysis. Again, remember, national scale of analysis would be that the data is specific to each state or each country. And here we can see it's not. We're just looking at the global migration there. All right. What about this one? What do we got? Scale of analysis. I can make it a little bigger. Some people are saying it was hard to see. Going down. Trying to like catch up on the chat. I'm seeing national, regional, local. What do we got? So we have our population changes. So we're looking at the 10 most populated there. National, local. Interesting. We have a lot of like kind of debate here. I would say when we're looking at this one here, so when we're looking at, we got New York City, Los Angeles. We're looking at different cities, kind of across. The scale would be more like national. We're kind of looking across there. You can maybe make a case for regional, but say more national there. And then the scale of analysis would be local because it is organized by particular cities. So that data is organized by particular cities there. So scale. This one is kind of a trickier one. So you could do like that subnational local there since it is the cities. If you, I'm realizing like as we're looking at this, the fact that like I took this like kind of subsect across the entire country would kind of make it a little bit more of a trickier one where it could lead towards that national there. So should have maybe had a little bit more clarification. One thing to note for scale, remember small scale and large scale. So small scale, again, we're looking at more of the Earth's surface, but we're like zoomed out. So the Earth would be an example there. Large scale, less of the Earth's surface, but we have more details. So again, zoomed in for the large scale, zoomed out for the small scale. Don't mess that up on the actual test. That's something to kind of remember there. For time, we're going to skip this because I want to get into the Kahoot. Again, we've spent a lot of time on scale right now. So hopefully it's making sense. So that one would be the larger scale. That would be the smaller scale. Again, just comparing these two, this one would be larger comparative. If you do need more practice, I do have a scale of analysis and scale quiz. I have another video breaking it down. I also have a separate video that I actually go through and I'm like breaking down the different concepts. It goes over like 5 of the common mistakes and it like breaks it down more in particular. So there's kind of 2 videos there and then a quiz too in that ultimate review packet. All right, last thing I shouldn't have clapped right by the mic. For Unit 1 is the types of regions. And I'll make it big so everyone can see them. Spend some time with the types of regions. You want to make sure you have an idea of formal, functional, perceptual. Remember, formal, we have these common characteristics, these attributes. It's not up for debate. So for example, if we're looking at this, these would be the United States is a formal region. We all know where the United States is. That isn't up for debate. A functional region, on the other hand, this nodal one would be an example right here. This is where we're going to have like kind of that center point. It's not necessarily in the center of like the region, but this is what's pulling people in. So you can think of a node. In this example, maybe it's like a pizza place. They service a certain area. So if you were living outside of this functional region, you would have to then order from a different pizza place. This would also be another example too of a functional region here. So each kind of these train stops here or the bus stops, they would actually then act as their own node and functional region. So they would service the people in that area. And remember with perceptual regions, that's stuff that is in your mind, things that are going to be different for each person. For example, if I asked you what is the South of the United States or what's the Midwest, everyone would have different ideas of what states would fit in there. So there's going to be more interpretation. Generally, if you ever see something using the cardinal directions, it's probably more likely going to be a perceptual region. And I did have someone saying the Middle East would be an example of a perceptual region. So that'd be an example there. So these are the types of regions. Definitely spend some time there. If you do need more help with any of these stuff, don't forget, I got a bunch of different quizzes and stuff in the ultimate review packet. If you want, you can check it out. We're going to be switching over to the Kahoot. So that's going to be exciting. I'm going to get that up right now. So if you wanted to, by all means, stick around, play Kahoot. Hopefully we can get everyone in. I am going to post the Kahoot code first. Okay. If you're on the Discord server, I just posted it. So, real quick too, if you are interested in more practice tests or unit highlight videos, I do have the new Ultimate Exam Slayer. If you already have the URP, you can actually get it for cheaper. But it's got a ton of stuff in there. I have a practice test for Unit 1, and it covers all the different topics. And you get this breakdown when you finish it, where it'll tell you exactly what units, well, in this case, topics you did the best on, which ones you did the worst on, so you can better understand where you need to study. I also have a lot of videos going over the core skills. Everything in the Exam Slayer is all about like test prep and AP test prep. It's not teaching the content. It's all just test stuff. So things to help you on that exam. All right, let's get into our Kahoot. There's our game code. Sign on in if you want. We're going to get in there. Also, we should do an outro. Yes. All right. I'm going to take that down quick. Whoops. Where'd my mouse go? I lost my mouse. Found it. All right. We got a lot of people in the Kahoot. If it does tap out and it stops kind of going, we'll get it fixed in just a second there. So cool. All right. Changing everything over. All right, I'm going to cut the YouTube video here. So if you are just watching this, that means we just finished. This is going to be an outro for the YouTube video because I'm going to split it. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check out the Unit 2 live stream starting tomorrow, or if you've already missed that one, the other live streams that will be on YouTube. We're now going to go play Kahoot, one of the fun things about being here live. So until next time, I'm Mr. Sinn, and I'll see you next time online. All right. That was kind of a quick rush one. All right, we are going to get started. Here we go. Question number 1. I'll interact with the chat a lot more right now. All right, we're up and running. What is the difference between the Robinson and Winkle triple projection? What do we got? All right, we got a lot of people in. All right, I'm going to try to catch up on some of the chat as well. Shout out to Mr. Carter Wells. Shout out to Mr. Carter Wells. Okay, what we got here? Yes. So again, oops, I should have put a picture of it. Maybe that would have given away. This would be an example too of a question. Like this was a little bit more specific. So it's just looking at the types of projection on the AP National Exam. Maybe you get 1 or 2 questions on the projections, but again, there's so much content that if you're really struggling with the projections, spend a little time, but I wouldn't overdo it too much on them just because there's so many other concepts you want to be familiar with. All right. The Jolly Gecko in the lead. There we go. All right. Question 2 coming up. Which of the following is not part of the cultural landscape in the image below? All right. Shout out to... Is that blocking it? There we go. Shout out to Mas. Thank you so much for all of the videos. You were really carrying my grade. Thank you. Thank you very much. Shout out to Mr. Jennings. What do we got? Shout out to Mr. Steele. Shout out to Miss Cole's 4th period class. Just trying to catch up on some of the super chats right now. Cool. Yes. So one thing to notice here when we're looking at it, notice this is the only one that there was no necessary environment interaction. Like this is just the environment. All these other ones, the use of bricks, construction of the homes, the flat roofs, the terrace farming, all of these are ways in which the environment has been manipulated. So in ways it's been changed. So again, cultural landscape, we're looking at that human interaction with the environment. And terrace farming, if you're unfamiliar with that, don't worry. We'll go over that more in Unit 5. That'll be looking at there. Ooh, the Nimble Falcon takes the lead. All right, there we go. There we go. All right, what is the map being displayed below? Move myself off. What do we got? Shout out to Miss Evans, AP Hug class with love. Shout out to Mr. Finch, Miss Plunkett's 3rd period, Mr. Tyler 2nd period. Shout out, Mr. Fritch is 4th block hugs. Mr. Abrams 1st period. I think I did get to that one. Love from Virginia. Okay, I think I got all of the super chats. I think so. If I missed him, I do apologize. It's going really fast. I will go back and look at everything. All right. So when we're looking at this, again, Winkle triple, I think it's the last map projection question I have here. We're looking really, the top is how you can tell it, the difference between the Robinson. Just one's wider, One's a little bit shorter there. Both are just doing that to try and minimize distortion. So that's the only difference there. They're trying to minimize the distortion. That's pretty much how each map projection is. They present things in different ways based on the use case there. All right, the map below, we got a region question. This is something you definitely want to spend time with. All right, moving off the super chats, going into the normal. What do we got? Shout out to New York. Okay, shout out to New York there. A lot of shout outs. If you have questions too about the content too, let me know. I'd love to do some of the content there. All righty. Yes, it would be uniform. So again, this is not up for debate. These countries are where they are. That's a fact. So again, perceptual, it'd be more of like each person might have a different opinion. Generally, we're focusing on directions. Often is kind of the thing that gives that away. Nodal, remember, we're focused around a certain economic activity or mode of transportation. And then functional is the same as nodal. So just two different ways to say the same thing. All right, what do we got? Golden Bison in the lead. Props there. Question 5. Radio stations are blank region. As you move farther away, people will start to tune the station out due to what? We got a couple different concepts happening here. What do we got? How to approach the MCQ. Whoops. This is a great question. I'm going to take it off so people can read. We are going to do some more time, probably the night before the test, of like looking at MCQ and how to approach those. If you do want a lot more practice, the Exam Slayer, if you haven't checked it out yet, that'll really, really help you. I created a video on every single course skill and where I'm like, not only explaining it, but also showing you like examples. And then we break down the examples. There's a lot of stuff in there that could focus there. But I'll make sure that we do a live stream focusing more on the multiple choice and also one for the FRQs. So we'll do that before the AP test so we can talk about some of the strategies there. Yes, majority of people, it looks like got this. It would be nodal. And then again, it's distance decay. So remember, for those who put like the time-space compression is shrinking. So it's actually making distance decay less impactful. Distance decay, again, the farther away we are from somewhere, less likely we are to interact with it. Nodal, again, is focusing on, in this case, is a radio station. So that'd be like the center that transmits outwards. So if you're in that radius, then you'd be part of that region. Once you leave it, you'll probably get it from a different radio station. The signal gets too weak then. All right, what do we got? Here's our leaderboard. The Golden Bison holding on strong. There we go. If your AP test is in 1 week, what is a good way to study? The best way, I'm messing it up. I apologize. Molly, great question. I had to take you down though, because I was blocking it. Best way to study, I think, is one, like reviewing your notes, definitely paying attention in class, working with your teacher on all the stuff they've been doing. But also two, what I always found the most helpful is taking a practice test. There's some great ones on College Board that you can use. There's a bunch online you can use. Actually, if you join the Discord server, I can post a link. There should be a link in the description of this video for my Discord server. A lot of students have posted free tests there that they've made. Otherwise, the Exam Slayer, the Ultimate Review Packet, has tests too in there that you could use. But you take tests, and the important thing though is once you take the test is after it. You need to go through and grade it. And don't stop once you're done grading it. Look to see then which units you did the worst on. That way you can kind of better understand exactly where you need to study. And that'll allow you to refine your studies. So taking tests, I think, is really helpful because then you can kind of identify your weak spots. Then make sure you go and review. And that way you're not studying everything all at once. But yes, it would be perceptual. Remember the Middle East. Everyone has a different idea. Some people would say parts of Northern Africa are in the Middle East. Some people would say it's just right here. Some people go a little bit more into Asia there. So it's all kind of up to the individual. Now, if the focus wasn't for this question, and this is why it's important to read, if the focus was saying the States, then that would not be a perceptual region. That would be a formal region. So again, the focus of the question was Middle East. And so again, anytime we're using directions, generally it's always going to be a perceptual region. So make sure you always pay attention on the AP test exactly what the focus of the question is, because that will change the answers. All right. Oh, we got a lead change. The lovely Ant moving up. Nicely done. Here we go. Question 7. What type of map is this? We did review this. We'll see who is paying attention. Can you still join the Kahoot? Yes, of course you can. By all means. Also, make sure to post this Kahoot in the ultimate review packet after this is all said and done. So if you want to do it on your own, you can. All righty. There we go. And it's a chloropleth map. Yes, the majority of people did it. You did this Kahoot. That would be that a teacher shared it with you. I made this Kahoot for the live streams, but that's okay. No big deal. Hopefully it just helps reinforce it then. But yes, it would be a chloropleth map. Again, whenever we're looking at maps, make sure we pay attention to any of the data. Real quick, anyone know what is the scale and scale of analysis of this map? What is the scale and scale of analysis? What do we got? Do you need to know where countries are on the map, cities? You do not need to memorize every like city in the world or anything like that. I would be familiar with some like the major countries that can often help, but don't worry about like memorizing every single city. I mean, maybe have an understanding of some of the global cities, at least have an example of them, so that way you could reference it on like an FRQ. But you don't need to memorize everything there. It would be a national and local scale, national and local. Yes, national and local. So again, we're looking at the entire country. These are also counties. So that's why it'd be for the scale and scale of analysis. We have a change. Ooh, a lovely ant holding on, but the glowing ant is moving up. Here we go. All right. The next one, your high school girlfriend has moved across the country. What AP Human Geography concept should give you hope for your future? What do we got? What do we got? Some people are asking, are we going to do an FRQ? Yes, we will do an FRQ review. So that will be something that we are doing. We'll do that closer as we get closer to the AP test. Yes, time-based compression. Awesome. That should give you hope. That means that, you know what? You can still interact. You can Zoom. You can play Fortnite or Marvel Rivals. You can try to grind up to Grandmaster if you want, or Celestial. You can do it all through the internet. So that's a positive. Cool. What we got? Samsung. I am glad it's helped you out. So thank you very much. I'm glad that both those resources have helped you out. That is awesome. All right, let's go to our scoreboard. Here we go. Oh, change up. Smart Rhino taking the lead. Ooh, here we go. Next question coming up. The blue dots are what? What do we got here? All right. Sorry. I was getting a drink of water. Uniform region would be a formal region. Again, it's just a different way of saying it. So formal, uniform, nodal, functional, just different ways of saying the same thing there. Yes, it would be clustered. Awesome. People got that one. We're going to go on to the next one because majority of people got that right away. I saw a couple people asking real quick. A couple people were asking about like the best way with that when I was talking about like taking a test and then like trying to see like, did you do well or not? This real quick is the exam slayer. If you're interested, this is that breakdown thing, but this is what I was talking about doing. Like, so when I take a test, you go through, you can have your predicted score and stuff, but you go through then, and after like you take a test, go through and figure out how many you got right and wrong for each of the different like topics. So if I got like a 5 out of 10 for introduction to maps, but I got a 10 out of 10 for geographic data, now I know I need to study introduction to maps more. So this is a very helpful way of actually approaching a test. So if you want this kind of exam tracker, and this stuff is all in that exam slayer, if you're interested. You also don't need it. You could do it on your own by all means. You could do it with your class tests and stuff. Just go through and then figure out where you're getting questions right or wrong. And that'll allow you then to better understand where to study instead of just studying every unit all at once. All right, what is the difference between absolute, relative, absolute, and, or sorry, what is the difference between absolute or relative distance and absolute and relative location? All right. What do we got? Shout out. So this is from Connor. Shout out to my big dog, Billy Brands. Shout out to Billy and AJ Awesome 47 to get a 5 again. There we go. Shout out from Connor. Cool. Majority of people are getting this one. So what's the difference between these? Yep. So this is just looking at vocab. Kahoot sometimes is a little limited, so I have to do some like weird wording. I can only get so many characters in for the actual questions and the also answers there. The glowing ant takes the lead. We got a lot of changes going on here. Shout out to Ms. Hunt in Virginia, the AP Hug Goat. Awesome, awesome. What else do we got here? Shout out to, oh, this is AJ Awesome again. I read that one. Oh, I'll put it full screen so you guys can see. Topping in. We'll also see who's paying attention because we did go over this. Shout out to Mr. Raynaud. Second period class is the best. Shout out to Miss Wheeler's third hour class. Yes. Shout out, I believe, to Raynaud's. Yes. I'm not the best at all of the pronunciation, if you haven't figured out. So I do apologize if I've butchered any names there. But all right, going on to our next question here. Which of the following would not be considered qualitative research data? So which of the following would not be considered? Again, the focus here is on qualitative. Qualitative. What do we got? All righty. Shout out to Mr. Herb from Eli. All right, back to some questions too. I do like doing shout outs. It is hard though, because when we start doing shout outs, all of a sudden that's like the whole stream. And I know people also want to review and have some questions here too. Yes, the census data, that would be quantitative. So remember, quantitative, that's like a fact, objective. Qualitative would be more subjective. So observations, surveys, interviews, all of those kind of change depending on who you are and who's collecting it. The smart rhino taking the lead. There we go. All right. Awesome. Here we go. Here we go. Sad day. Man, your high school girlfriend has moved across the country. What concept should you be worried about? Kind of the opposite of a question we had earlier. Someone was asking local scales. All right. We have a question here about local scales. Were you able to make it so you can see if I just bounce? There, that works. Okay. I'm trying to think about like how to word it exactly, what you're struggling. Like local scale, like a county would be a local scale. A city would be a local scale. It's looking at very specific places. So we're not looking at a lot of the earth. We're looking at a smaller portion of the earth. And a lot of times there we get the most detail in our data. And there's a variety of things. Like a neighborhood could be a local scale. Like the more zoomed in we get, the more specific that data is going to be. On the other hand, the more zoomed out we get, the less it's going to be local, more we're going to get into like national if we're looking at the whole country, or global, we're looking at the whole world, or region, we're looking at a variety of different places within then a larger context. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I think the scales, if you want, again, I have those videos and then the practice quiz in that ultimate review packet. If you go to the unit 1, I have ones that's focused specifically on scale of analysis. There's a practice quiz. There's a lot of stuff in there because I know that is a trickier concept. And it is distance decay. Yes, time-space compression would not be correct. Shout out to the 10 people that put nothing. Our love is strong and will never die. I am so happy, props to you. I'm glad it'll all work out. That's legit. All right. Which of the statements below is not true regarding the maps? What do we got? Some people asking about an American state. Would that be a local scale? I'd say American state would be more of a regional. What do we got here? Regional scales. So some people are asking like would that be larger or smaller than a national scale? This is where with the AP test, it's really, really important to read carefully. So a regional scale, if we're talking about like global regions like North America, South America, well, that would be bigger than the national scale because the national scale is just talking about the country. But if I'm talking about regions within a state, for example, like regions within Texas, that would be smaller than a national scale. So that's where like context matters. It's hard to answer like definitively right now because I don't know the question that you're looking at. So you'd have to know the question and that stimulus that you're referencing. So always make sure you take time to observe that. All right, let's look here. So this again was a not question. Majority of people did get it, so that is awesome. Again, we're looking at this. We have two different scales that are being kind of used here. So when we're looking at the maps portraying vernacular regions, that is not true. These are wards, districts. These would be formal regions. Map B, so A was saying that map B has a larger scale than map A. That's not true. We can see this is more zoomed in, so that would not be the true thing there. Otherwise, some for yellow. Again, yellow is actually looking at, again, scale as well. So generalizations is always going to be when you're zoomed out more. That would be a factual statement since map A, if we're looking at it, is more zoomed out. It'll have more generalizations there. So there we go. Smart Rhino hanging on at the top. Ooh, this quality icon, Ahsoka, top tier. One of the best characters in Star Wars. Otherwise, for Marvel Rivals right now, I'm playing a lot of Thor, Groot. Been trying to practice magic, but I have not successfully done that in ranked yet. But Groot, Penny Parker, I do more of the Vanguard, more of the tanks. So there'll be that. All righty. What do we got? My opinion on Spider-Man. Love Spider-Man as a Marvel character, but Spider-Man is horrible. He's an insta-ban. He can make or break a game in Marvel Rivals. Spider-Man, he's a menace. All right, and yes, we're looking at this again. We're looking at a global, and now this would be a global scale, and we're also focusing too on this global scale of analysis. The reason why, when we're looking at this, it's not specific to any one country. Like the data is not organized when we're looking here by the country's boundaries. We're just looking at this global air pollution. And so, yes, it's impacting certain places. But it's just because globally how it's being presented. But the data is not specific. We're not looking at air quality for each individual country. We're just looking in general for the globe there. So data is not organized by the state. There we go. Oh, Wildcat moving up. Question 16 of 25. Should we focus on concept or vocab? I don't know what concepts you're referring to, but both. This class, you definitely need to know the vocab to be able to understand the concepts and to be able to apply them. But like later, when we get to later units, like when we're looking at unit 2 for the demographic transition model or von Thunen's model, or when we're looking at Rostow's, all of those other like concepts, you need to understand those models, theories, and that as well. So it's more than just the vocab, but you definitely want to spend time with that. All righty. Yes. So the amount of trade. So when we're looking at which of the following, you'd want to use a flow map. Anything with trade, you would want to use that for sure. That would be the advantage there because again, we're looking at this flow, the movement of goods between different things. And again, that could be goods, it could be people, it could be a variety of things. All right. The AP exam will be harder than this Kahoot. That is true. The Kahoot, again, is limited on how much I can put in a question. So I'm limited on how much text I can have. So that's why a lot of these are a little bit more focused on understanding the vocab and some application questions. If you go to my Ultimate Exam Slayer, there's a lot more there that's application focused. My rank right now on Rivals, last time I was like Grandmaster. I'm not there yet. We've been struggling more. Also, I just haven't had time to play it as much. Been doing a lot of AP prep stuff. Okay, people travel. Yes, it would be a functional. So here we have the castle, Magic Kingdom. Disney's really interesting. So the Disney is interesting because it could actually apply to a variety of regions. I really like Disney. So, like the castle itself, like Magic Kingdom, would be nodal. It's going to be this functional. People travel all over the world to go see that castle. But each ride within Disney World is also kind of its own nodal region or its own functional region. So, functional, nodal, same thing. Like Splash Mountain, which is now Tiana's Bayou Adventure, that has a certain pull. They're spaced out from Space Mountain. So that way they kind of pull people in different spots of the park, which reduces the wait times. But Disney also has a formal region as well because they have all their themed lands. You have Frontierland, you have Adventureland. So those are set. So that's also some unifying characteristics between the land. So kind of a cool thing. Fun fact with Disney. All right, let's go. Which map is best used for navigation and traveling the sea? Here we go. Simple definition between formal, functional, and perceptual. Formal, it's not for debate. Unified characteristics. Example, the United States of America, country, or a state, Florida. Functional, it's going to be like a center point. Generally, there's some activity happening, travel, economics, some trade. So center point, then things come to it. Perceptual, everyone might have a different opinion on it. Generally using directions, like the Middle East is an example there. Or, for example, is Kansas a southern state or a northern state? How do you define it? It's kind of up to the people there. Each person might have a different perspective. Okay, here we go. Majority of people got this one. Awesome. It would be that wonderful, wonderful Mercator projection that does have a lot of distortion. All right, Swift Eagle moving up. We're at 19 out of 25. Getting down there to the end. Perceptual and vernacular. Yes, that is the same thing. Do I like... Now I'm seeing a lot of Marvel Rivals questions. Clearly, people play Marvel Rivals. I should have made a video on Marvel Rivals. Some people ask about Moon Knight. I do like playing Moon Knight. Moon Knight is fun to play. All right. Shout out to Jack. You're going to get a 5. Awesome. I hope you get a 5. I think that was the last super chat I was behind on. All right. And... ooh, interesting here. All right, so the belief physical environment plays a crucial role in the development of society along with the culture. So remember, with environmental determinism, when we are looking at environmental determinism, that's saying like culture, human agency doesn't really play a role there. Possibilism says that, yes, the environment plays a role, but human agency also does as well. Both factor into it. Both are part of that. So hopefully that helps there. So again, don't mix these two up. Environmental determinism is saying like, hey, human agency, that's not going to impact it. Culture isn't going to influence the development outcome. The environment does. Possibilism is going to say, well, no, people actually have a lot more impact than they think. All righty. Here we go. Question 20 out of 25. Are we doing these live reviews for every unit? Yes. Yes, we are. You love the haircut. I'll let my wife know. My wife's the one who cuts my hair, so I'll tell her that this time it was all right. All righty. Which of the following concepts would best match with the spread and flow of objects, people between different places? Yes, I'm going to try to do stuff for psych. So if you're here for psych, or I'm going to try to get some stuff for psych, hopefully I'll be able to get that there. Cool. Yeah, spatial interaction. Majority of people did get this. So whenever we're looking at the spread, the movement, the interactions, spatial interaction is going to be kind of that broad term that connects to all of it. All right. The Noble Ostrich still in the lead. We're on question 21 out of 25. There we go. Census can be used for all the following except what? What do we got? I'm just the glorious king. That's very kind. One thing that I would point out, Your comments are always very nice and it's very kind. Please make sure you're telling your teachers how much you appreciate them. Your teachers are very stressed out during this time. I am always terrified during this time with my students because you as a teacher want to do the best that you possibly can to help them out. And so please make sure it goes a long way. Thank your teachers. Tell them that you appreciate them. They really do. It does matter. It does make an impact. And teachers can tell when you're genuine too. So don't just go like walk by the door and be like, hey, thanks. Like actually kind of tell them like, I appreciate all the work you put in this year. It's a lot to teach AP. So make sure you guys are also thanking all of your teachers as well. I see all the shout outs for teachers and that's always awesome there. It's hard to get to all of them because they just fly by. But make sure you're also telling your teachers in person. It would go a long way. All right, here we go. I accidentally clicked the next thing. My apologies there. We have the Noble Ostrich still in the front. Here we go, 22 out of 25. Here we go. All right, based on the map below, which of the following countries has the most organic farming? Let me know if you know what map this is. What type of map? What type of map? I'll pin your comment on the screen if I can see some of them. Tobler's Law. Really, it's focusing on distance decay and how places interact. Okay, a cardigram. I like that. Cardigram. Yes, cardigram. Woo. Cardigram, please pin and shout out as well. Yep. Oh, and it's gone. I was going to read the rest, but sorry. Yes, it'd be Australia. Again, this is where students can get tripped up. Like we can see certain countries and even certain continents are almost non-existent. So again, spending a little bit of time making sure you understand how to read these maps is really important. That way, if you do get someone or get a map like this on the test, you'll be able to break it down. All right, do we have a change in the leaderboard? Ooh, not really. It's starting to solidify. We'll see what happens, though. There can always be some changes at the end. Here we go. What concept? Tobler's first law. I should really have rewritten this one because you don't have to know necessarily Tobler. It's more the concepts that you want to understand. So that would be the focus there is the concepts that could connect. All righty. So again, I should have reworded this question. Don't worry about Tobler in particular. The big focus here is time, space compression, distance decay, just trying to reinforce that. Tobler was saying that like places that are farther away will interact less, places that are near to you you'll interact more with. Literally distance decay, time, space compression counters that. I was just trying to find a different way to word it. But don't worry about memorizing Tobler. He just has the first law of geography there. All right. Going on to the next thing, Frank notices that the majority of people living in France support the Paris Climate Agreement. This is an example of what? What do we got? Explain the degree. Explain the degree. We will cover more of the FRQ stuff the night before the test. I have 3 hours or something of videos all focusing on FRQs and breaking down examples of it, showing you how to answer them all in the exam slayer. So if you're interested, there's a link down below. There's a ton there on the task verbs. I also have some videos free on YouTube that will cover the task verbs as well. I think it's I'm trying to remember the name of it. If you just like task verbs, Mr. Sinn, it should pop up. There was one I posted last year and it covered that. But explain the degree, you'll have to have like a high, moderate, low. You're looking at how a concept connects into the actual real world. We'll talk more about the FRQs later on. Yes, it would be qualitative research. So again, the data collection here, whatever, it's opinions. So it's not quantitative. That would be qualitative. Subject to change. All right, last question. Here we go. What do we got? If you wanted to understand the daily commuting patterns of residents in Chicago, you would want to look at what? What would you want to look at? LeBron James equals me? I don't know. I'm from Minnesota, and the Timberwolves, we just got a nice win yesterday, and hopefully we can win the series. And LeBron, he didn't get the W yesterday. T-Wolves represent. All right. Here we go. And a large scale map. So again, for those who put the small scale, Large scale, we want to be able to get more particular. You want to see those details. Small scale will be looking more of like a global map. We're looking at the world, so we have less details there. All right, what do we got? Oh, we got the amusing chicken in third place. Swift Eagle in second. And in first place, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the noble ostrich. Woo! There we go. Way to go. Awesome. Awesome. Hopefully people had fun. I had fun. It's always cool doing this and going through the stuff. Tomorrow, we will have a coot again at the end. We'll also start with going over kind of that unit review. One thing I do want to kind of do, and I'll have to make it quick just because I'll make people actually join in. If you're interested, we do have, put it up. If you want, you could join the Mr. Sinn Discord server. It's free. Actually, every day, students post different questions. They're practice test questions. All of this is free. So if you want, you can go through, you can click the answers then. We have a bunch of chats open for people studying. We have like 21,000 students in this Discord server. It's completely free to join. If you're interested, by all means, go on in. The link is, I'll fix the link if the link's not working. So I'll get that fixed. There's also some chats in there for people who got the ultimate review packet or that exam slayer as well. So hopefully you guys had fun. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. If you do need more help with anything Unit 1, check out the exam slayer for like that full Unit 1 practice test. I made 10 questions for every single topic in the CED. And then there's also explanations for all of them. There's also videos in there that are talking about the highlights, like the most common concepts from Unit 1 that could be on the test. And all that's just Unit 1. There's also stuff for all the other units. And then 2, the ultimate review packet has all the content. But link for the Discord server, I will get that posted in just a second. For all of those you leaving, have a good night, people. Go get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow for Unit 2 at 7 p.m. Central Time. We're going over everything population and migration. It's a big unit, but it's a fun one. So if you're heading out, by all means, head on out. Thank you guys for joining. Let me get the Discord server link. I can try to get that up. I don't know why the one I had in there was expired. So, Here we go. Server settings. All right. Should just be the invite. All right. I don't know why that's not working. If you're just joining us, I'm trying to get a link right now so people can get in to invites. There we go. All right. I think I got it. All right. I just posted it in there. Am I able to? I don't know if I'm able to pin it. Does that pin it? Maybe that pins it. I do not know if that pins it or not. Oh, I forgot about the poll. Oh, well. All right. I posted the Discord server in there. I'll make sure to update that for the next thing too, so that way it's fixed. I'm gonna have to sign off though. I'm pretty tired. My cheeks look really red. It gets hot in here with all the lights and stuff. But thank you all for hanging out. If I missed any of your super chats or if I missed any of your chats, I do apologize. It's hard when it goes so fast, but I really do appreciate all of you. I go back, I'll look at the chat, I'll look at the different comments and stuff. So thank you all in advance. Have a great night, everybody. Go thank your teacher. Until next time, I'm Mr. Sinn, and I'll see you tomorrow for Unit 2. Same time, same place. As always, I'll see you next time online.